Everybody say you mean, let's ball when the bean. Who's that out there living they dream? Let's ball when the bean. Who's that still smoking all the green? Let's ball when the bean. Come on y'all, let me hear you scream. Let's ball when the bean.
Welcome back. Recap. Going over 220. What a fun show we have ahead of you. We're going to end up breaking this up a little bit differently and going over what happened over this historic event with records being broken and underdogs coming through for days. And I thought it was a really fun show. It was worth the pay-per-view. Everybody said that main event wasn't going to go past the first round. And alone that fight went out of the first round, you got every cent you were owed in that pay-per-view when you ended up buying it.
I felt like this about the pay-per-view.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was really exciting. There was all sorts of fun stuff that ended up happening. There was finishes all over.
Emotionally, it was worth it. Fight-wise, there was a lot of boring times.
Interesting. I thought I enjoyed myself fairly well. 5 rounds of the same old fight can get a little bit boring, but everything that's happened since that we're definitely going to end up breaking down it adds the fuel to the fire for me. It keeps me intrigued. It keeps me following. So, the first fight of the night, Makhachev over Tibau. That was a nasty knockout in like 40 seconds. Makhachev was not on too many of my cards, but he definitely was on a lot of those winning cards for the night. What are you going to do with Tibau? Get him on out of here? USADA, everything show?
Get out of here.
Exactly. Time to go.
Makhachev, though, he works his way right up from being first fight of the night to maybe even getting on a main card on a Fox event or a prelim card on a really great pay-per-view.
Right.
Entertaining fight and totally out of his style.
It was 40 seconds.
For him,
it was 2 punches.
I thought it was going to be a grinding decision. Yeah. Boring decision.
That's post-USADA. Post-USADA Tibau, which I do, and older Tibau, he's going to be retiring soon anyways. But getting on to the next fight, we had Barzola beating Berset on short notice, unanimous decision. I had Barzola on a bunch of stuff, and he was on a lot of those winning cards for me.
As did I.
He was over that 89 to 98 points. He just had way more cardio. Berset shows that he's in it to win it, and he can go a little bit further. He's definitely going to gain a lot from this fight at this level. Barzola, I think, could have had the finish at times, but toughness of Berset came through. I'm going to keep watching both of these gentlemen. They still have a future in this division. Anything that stuck out to you specifically on this fight?
No. I had Barzola everywhere. It went exactly how I thought it was going to go.
Yep, decision city. So then we had Ars defeating Dan Ige. We both were on Ige, thinking he was really going to come through, but Ars ended up dominating that fight. Not even dominating. It was a close one. I'm going to keep watching both of these guys. There's nothing that really stuck out to me either way. Ige's got to get his striking defense up a little bit more. They both need to work on their cardio because if they don't fix that, they're not going to be going too much further. But fun fight. I'm not going to remember it too much. What went down for you on that fight? Exactly. So then we had a huge underdog come through with Dustin Ortiz defeating Alejandro Pantoja in a unanimous decision. I really like that I backed off of Pantoja when we gave you guys that second breakdown later on in the week. I had Pantoja on every card, and I took him off of a bunch because of the respect for that wrestling and that grind that Ortiz had. I didn't have Ortiz on too many, but the win was Pantoja got taken off a lot of cards, which let me put in some other guys. Ortiz, he ruins hype trains. All sorts of hype trains, and then he comes out and loses to Moreno, and just Ortiz has a very tough record to be with in a very tough and unique division. Both of these guys going forward are going to be top prospects. I think Pantoja is going to learn a lot from this because he hasn't really wrestled this type or fought this type of a wrestler. So he now knows his deficiencies, and I think he'll grow from this where Ortiz is just going to keep on grinding for that belt.
How many more times are you going to be saying that? It's so crazy how we look at the UFC at some point and we see a fighting style and we're like, yep, here's the fighting style that takes over. But every time you get back to it, and you always say it, it's that American wrestling.
Exactly, that control.
That wrestling.
The scrambles, the mentality. You heard this show before. you know what we're getting at. Get your kids into wrestling. Collegiate style. Not that Greco-Roman freestyle stuff, even though it's okay. Just folk style wrestling is specifically conducive to making you a better athlete and fighter.
And
mentally
probably
strong
human
person.
being, better on a team, and working for yourself. I like that about wrestling.
Yep.
You're totally in your own match, and you're on a team.
Agreed.
I love that about it.
It is really nice.
A solo sport, yet team sport.
And it's also a spectator sport, they like to say. Because it is. The fans for wrestling, it's always fun to see the families that get out there and do it together. Either way.
Is there a sport that isn't a spectator sport?
I'm selling it.
Is there, though, really? Why do they even have that word? It seems redundant. Is there any...
Or that phrasing.
Yeah.
Because they gotta fucking fill 5 hours of football with something.
Spectator, the word.
Yeah.
They're like, if we could just add this word before
fan,
every time we say sport.
to make the dumb fan seem fun and educated. Yeah.
Because if you're just sitting by yourself, you're just playing with yourself. If no one's spectating, you're just playing with yourself.
Learning a lot of life lessons here at LaTB. So, then we had Al Hassan versus Hamasi. We told you to stay away from Hamasi all day for a reason. This ended up not getting out of the first.
Oh my gosh, I wish I would have listened to that.
I feel like we were both.
Ugh.
You changed your mind again?
Yes, I wish I listened to myself. And I wish I stayed away from it. I wish I would have actually put Al Hassan on more cards. But
Me too.
I put Hamasi on too many. Sad to say.
0 for me. I listened to the last LaTB show and ended up being like, damn, that's some really good advice. And it totally was. Hamasi got nothing worth of points. I don't even know what his score was because, again, I didn't play him anywhere. But Hassan, still be careful. All this hype, he just beat the same guy twice. So it's not like he beat 2 different fighters. He beat the same guy twice. Do not forget that. Somebody he had already figured out. His next opponent, he might have a little more steam, and there's a way to beat Al Hassan, and it's that gas tank and grappling, even though he's a judo practitioner. So, Hamasi, you gotta get on out of here, my friend. Get back to stripping while you still can. And Al Hassan, that gas cardio, man, this is the best thing that could have happened for him.
I have to say something, though.
Uh-huh.
Didn't he look physically different this time in the octagon than he has in the
No,
past?
he looked humongous both times.
I just thought his body was cut differently. He looked more evenly filled out. He didn't have the skinny legs with the built top. I thought he looked differently built, and I didn't know if that was going to be a plus to his cardio. Like, oh, maybe him and his team worked on his cardio. He looks different. We didn't get to even see that. He looked different in the fight to me, though, but we didn't get to see too much of it.
Yeah.
But even for the 3 minutes and 47 seconds that the fight lasted, he was so gassed by that point in the last fight.
Exactly.
So I felt like maybe he worked on that cardio a little. Maybe I'm reaching.
I would say that that's going to inflate his price next fight around, and if it's specifically against a wrestler, I'm going to be all over the other opponent, depending on who it is. But we end up moving along, and we ended up having Bochniak decisioning Davis. This is a fight that I can barely remember. There was a lot of striking involved. Both of these fighters got hit. Both of them had okay chins, but neither one impressed me any which way. That's all I got to say about that one. It was just non-memorable, to say the least.
That's all I have to say about that.
Do you got anything to say about that?
No, that really is all I have to say about that.
All right, then we ended up having the Leslie Smith pick of the week come through yet again. Yet some more cash in your pocket. We told you, make a bet on the side. It was near even by the closing lines. Rob Font was a plus 120. Ended up putting a little bit more cash on Rob Font. Even put some parlays for the finish. And guess what ended up happening? Rob Font got the finish because Alameda has openings and can be countered and is conducive to being countered once he starts moving forward. And he beat a whole lot of regional guys to inflate that record, and Rob Font has not. Feel like those Boston guys really came through this entire weekend.
Everything I said. And a Boston guy is not going to lose to a New Yorker. That's the other
Or
thing.
Brazilian.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about the fight before. That's the only
Bochniak versus Davis.
The Bostonians came through.
So, on to the next fight, we ended up having John Vellante versus Francimar the Grosso Barroso.
Oh my gosh. This is the other thing I have to say about this pick for the wage gauge, which I wasn't feeling.
Yeah, it's true. I was trying to convince
But here
you.
is what, the reason I wasn't feeling it. I had listened to the previous show, and you had said at the beginning of that episode, I always hate Barroso. He's my least favorite fighter in the UFC. I never go with him. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, huh. And you're going to make him the wager gauger. You're the...
Yeah.
And everything you said about him, true.
Exactly.
He's so gross. Why did we make him the wager gauger?
Because...
Even he's getting so much shit for that fight that he's getting shit like John Vellante, like... He wasn't even doing any action. John Vellante couldn't even get off more shots because he wasn't doing anything. And I'm like, well, that's reaching. John should have been able to get off more shots.
Agreed. Gonna fade both of these fighters. I'm trying to... This was a fade for me, and I just tried to pick the least fadeable fighter. I thought Vellante had less in the tank than Barroso, but the opposite came about, and Barroso has a lot less than Vellante. So... Either way, I'm trying to make money off of these guys in their next bouts because there's not too many fighters that they should be beating in the UFC. This is a very lacking division at 205.
Yeah, especially what are you in this area. Here? Yeah.
Exactly. So, I was just hoping that Volante's chin was a bit more test worn.
John looked good in this fight.
Exactly.
Because Vellante didn't even throw back, but like twice, 3 times.
Barroso did it. Yeah, it was horrible. Absolutely horrible. I don't even want to reminisce about this anymore.
Yeah,
it's making me feel bad.
Let's move on.
So, we ended up going to Calvin Kattar finishing Shane Burgos, the hype train.
This is the fight I was talking about.
Lesbo definitely coming through. Another
Bostonian. This is the fight where the Bostonian does not lose to the New Yorker. This is the fight.
Man, oh man, what a fun fight. This was really enjoyable. Both of these guys came to fight. Burgos didn't back down, neither did Kattar. Both of them got hit multiple times. Great chin, especially on Kattar. Burgos, I didn't dislike his performance. He just got caught one more time than Kattar, but Kattar set it up beautifully the entire fight. I even rewatched the fight. Both of these men were working incredibly well. Burgos hasn't walked through nobodies. But Kattar has really stepped up to the plate.
I really like Kattar.
He's definitely someone you got to be watching out for because Burgos was on all that sorts of hype and a true hype. Burgos earned it.
Kattar lived up to bigger expectations than I thought.
By far.
He looked really good. I'm excited to see him in the future. He's an unranked guy, I think.
He's about to be ranked because Burgos, they're in the top 15 contention, both of these guys. But Kattar... Feely debut and now finishing a guy that's not easily finished, never been finished before, rarely heard in a fight. Kattar really put it on him in beautiful combinations. And just as good
as finishing somebody, he didn't get finished, and he took some shots. And that is something to think about his toughness.
Was this the fight that I was... he had hurt Burgos a few times, but the beauty in the fight was that Kattar never swarmed him. He just backed up, set his shots up, and got the finish properly. He didn't overextend and allow that counter to happen because he was setting it up. Was this
patient?
Right, exactly. And that just speaks so much higher of how many more people he's going to be able to finish with that state of mind. Too many people freak out in that moment and don't get the finish because they overextend and get taken down or counter themselves. And Kattar was in the state of mind to be able to recognize that. Beautiful stuff. On to the co-main event. We ended up having...
Okay, wait. Okay. I just have to stop you.
All right.
So I said that Volkan Oezdemir was my version. He was my white version of Francis N'gannou. Was I right?
100%.
I thought...
100%.
And I said they were naive picks going into it. And I learned such a valuable lesson watching these two fights. You think Oezdemir and N'gannou learned a lot going into these fights? I learned a lot. I learned a lot about this whole game because of watching these two guys out wrestle these children as far as the game's concerned. You have these two guys who should be
wrestlers.
Yes, and now I'll let you move on. So we'll start with Daniel.
The co-main event.
Yeah, co-main.
Oezdemir versus Cormier. You were definitely hyped on Oezdemir. I think there was valid points in there, but a lot like the Rumble Johnson fight. Exactly, I feel like I was saying. He's going to eat those shots and eventually use that wrestling to get him down. And Oezdemir just has never seen the DC level worth of ground control. And you could see it in there. Crucifixed and just 30, 40 unanswered shots to finally give you the finish in that fight. But well-deserved. Daniel Cormier, he could step away today. And he has one of the most legendary careers of all time, even with his arch rival being in there. So Cormier has nothing else to prove in there. If John Jones comes back, cool. If not, whatever. I really dislike this whole Nowitzki UFC trying to defend John Jones all of a sudden because they're not fucking doing it for anybody else. And it's a really weird precedent they're saying because I feel like the UFC's trying to use John Jones, get John Jones in the door.
We'll get
Oh, shit.
We'll get into that. I want to hear all about it. Make a note so we definitely talk about it. But just stay on this fight because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much to say about this. I had to pull up just DC's picture big so I could remember everything to say.
All right. So with DC, fight anybody, you're going to win other than JBJ. Oezdemir, you're going to have to fight. Olenek, you're going to end up having to fucking fight 2-3 more fights, finish a couple more people. Jimmy Manuwa, you don't have a fucking shot. Stay the fuck out of here. DC.
Okay, a question.
Take a break. Yeah, go ahead.
See, this is, and like, I have so much to say about the fight, but just a question to finish. What do you feel about the UFC pushing for the DC Stipe fight?
DC himself has already said that as long as Kane is in the division, he's not going to fight at heavyweight. So Kane's going to have to step away before any of that happens because DC's that type of loyal of a friend to say, no, I don't even worry about it and let Kane take it over. And for the right price, these fighters will fight each other. It's whether UFC is willing to pay that price.
DC, going into this, the first round, I felt bad for DC a little bit. He kept trying to take Oezdemir down. It was not happening. It was not happening. I was nervous. I was on the edge of my seat. Even though I had Oezdemir to win, I didn't want to see... By the time the fight was happening, I've always been a fan of DC. But now I feel like he's gone from heel to babyface.
Yep.
And
everything is turning DC's corner finally.
DC. It was touching the whole entire thing. He could have walked out. He could have been like, I retire right now.
100%.
It could have been done and done. He kept shaking DC off, and we were with the firefighter, and the firefighter's like, it's all on how he comes out in that second round.
Yep.
So true.
Yep.
So true. How he comes out in the second round. Now I can't believe how whooped he is. I can't believe how tired he is immediately just from the initial takedown submission. I almost thought he wasn't fighting off the submission just because it was so close to the end of the round. There was no need to.
Uh-huh.
And then you saw, he is whooped.
Yep.
He is whooped.
Yep.
Whatever DC does to a human being he's the real bear and he's the scariest man in the UFC to me.
That's when your older brother is just at that age where you're just young enough where you're like, get off me. And all you can say is get off me. But you can't do shit about it because you're exhausted and they're on top of you. Yeah.
You're hitting yourself.
Like, oh, dude. Daniel Cormier is the big brother in that spot. And Oezdemir, he didn't quit. Never quit. Never tapped. Never verbally tapped. So he's going to learn even more from this fight.
He's young enough.
Exactly. Same with the main event. The amount of level that this should be known as UFC, the learning experience.
If I'm Oezdemir, and I'll be real honest, I pack up my little duffel bag and get my dog in my Jeep. I'm just guessing all this is the type of person he is. I get my dog in my Jeep, get my girlfriend maybe, tell her I'll write her and give me a couple months to set up shop, and I drive my happy ass to AKA, and I show up there, and I humble myself on the feet of Daniel Cormier, and I bet he takes him in with open arms.
Oh yeah, most fighters
his body style and what he already knows with punching. This is the other thing about the fight that I don't know if anyone's talking about. To me, DC clearly outstruck Oezdemir in every way, even far. Standing.
Yeah.
He looked so good on his feet. No one ever talks about that for DC. He was fast. His punches were crisp. Mm-hmm. He had great straight punches. To me, he looked better on his feet than anyone's talking about. I don't want him to see him fight John Jones next. I don't know what Oezdemir does. He can fight any one of these guys. There's so many guys at the 205 that are like, meh, whatever.
I totally agree with that. I could see all of that.
And his defense, well, I don't know. It was still only 1 round good, but I don't know if that's because DC's that good.
Exactly. DC does deserve a lot of credit in this.
Finally, he got all the applause he's always wanted.
Rightly so. He deserves it. He's going to be a good mark, and he's going to stick around. He's going to have a announcing career for a very long time.
If he sits next to John Jones again, do you think people boo John Jones this time?
Yes. 100%. John Jones is went heel. Where Cormier and John Jones have changed has been really unique because John Jones has done it so many times. We've both talked about this. We're done with the shenanigans, and so is everybody else. Regardless, we're just like, it's not worth even investing our time into you because you let us down so many times. So, definitely have no sympathy for John Jones at all. Again, as I was saying before, DC, you owe nobody nothing. Nothing.
He can ride off into the sunset, and I'd love to see him in the announcer chair for this.
He already has. Exactly. The only thing that I'm curious, and this is a prediction here at LaTB, is maybe not a prediction. I hope it doesn't happen, but I can very easily see it happening. Is Daniel Cormier blowing up to like 350, 400 pounds.
If he's not fighting, he's going to get chubby.
Yeah, because it happens automatically, and he's had a lifelong battle.
I think he'll get fat, but I also think he'll stay fit enough because I do think he'll be a coach. I do think we'll still see him in people's corners.
Agreed.
And
Yep.
I do think he'll be very... I think he's such a boys club type guy. I think he loves his crew, yeah, of dudes. And he's so great with them kids. The little wrestling kids. That was good. That was really cool to see. It made me a fan. They really built him up great this time. Him and John have fought twice, so this would be the trilogy.
But is it a trilogy when you lose 2 in a row against someone?
If there's questionable circumstances, both the losses.
Yeah, I could see that angle. Yeah, but I'm betting on fucking John Jones in that fight. I'm betting on because he's gonna probably be juiced and fucking be out for 6 more years. DC will retire. John Jones will come in and beat whoever else on fucking cocaine or whatever he does, whatever the fuck it is.
I think DC should move up to heavyweight, and I don't think he should fight Stipe right away. I think he should work his way through a couple of the dudes. I think DC should fight Francis.
That's a fun fight. I'd watch that all day. But you kind of know what's happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's very easy.
It's a fun fight.
He has to take, maybe try not to get hit the first round. That's going to be the only goal. It's an easy fight for him. Maybe fight one more guy in the division, and if it gets to Stipe, cool, but see what happens with Kane. Mm-hmm. Apparently he has a cage around his spine.
He's had multiple surgeries.
At this point, it's like, homie.
Yep. 100,000,000% agreed. Just step back and do the same things DC is and coach and whatever. So, on to the main event. We ended up having a underdog returning most consecutive heavyweight title defenses ever, and still Stipe Miocic defeats Francis N'gannou in a 5-round decision. Nobody said it was going the distance. Neither of us did it as well. We should have had Stipe as our wager gauger. He cashed me out on my DK cards that I was at, and N'gannou failed me on a lot more cards. So, Stipe...
Agree.
You are the fucking man. Baddest man in the planet. You showed it. You ate some fucking bombs. You're at the... Did you see post-fight Twitter shit? All of his pictures?
Oh, his
Stipe's eye swollen to the size of a watermelon. Ugh. I mean, whoo, that's the price of glory right there. And Francis, wrestling. We had seen levels of wrestlers not have success against Francis because of his athleticism. But when we saw that D1 next level Missouri boy,
bullshit,
fucking wrestler hardcore get in there, we saw how it took over. Francis's gas tank was tested and it failed absolutely miserably. Francis, for his credit, didn't give up. Didn't defend the takedown. You could just see how labored he was. After, what was it, the first round? Pretty much after a few grappling exchanges. And that punching power just slowly ended up leaving him What are we going to do with Miocic? What are we going to do with N'gannou? N'gannou can fight anybody in the division. Miocic, take a little bit of time off. You deserve it. Who's the next heavyweight in contendership that has a real shot?
By round 2.5, the only thing that N'gannou was missing was one shoe. He should have one shoe on. He looked like that drunk person leaving a crazy concert, just drunk walking through the parking lot, and you're like, look at that. That person has one shoe on. They are wasted. And then later in the night, you just imagine a janitor sweeping up a concert dance area, and there's a bunch of trash and spilt beer and sticky shit, and then one lone shoe in the trash. He just looked wasted.
Gassed. Absolutely.
I never seen somebody so good. I can't believe he didn't tap sooner.
Which is something that is just proof that Francis is not going to give up in there, whether he's winning or losing a fight, which I really like. There is positives that he did learn from this. With Stipe, a testament not only to him and his career is his game planning. I've seen multiple people talking about highlighting how he game plans, and he does fight uniquely different fights. I saw people putting videos together of how he fights other fighters, and we're seeing it more and more, and we've seen it for a long time. GSP has notoriously been one of the best fighters ever because he had one of the best camps behind him. Same with Rory McDonald. He's only at that level because they adapt to the fighter and don't just say, this is my best, you're gonna either beat me or not at my best. Most of the time, changing that always ends up winning because of the diversity.
And everyone's kind of giving Stipe shit, though, because he doesn't he stays in Ohio and does his firefighting thing and doesn't really change it up. And they're like, oh, it's not going to work. Look at all these other people. You know, there's so many gypsy-hearted fighters these days.
Yep.
He works for
Roman
Stipe.
The traveling samurai.
The baddest man on the planet. What an impressive victory, though. He slayed Francis.
Totally.
We saw every hole in Francis's game. I think he can still fight every other person he hasn't fought yet.
Exactly.
He still has a career in the UFC, and he's still frightening after, first. By the next fight, he'll be frightening for 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Stipe, his only fight's Kane, as far as I'm concerned, and Kane he has to make it through 2 fights at least. He can't go right to Stipe.
Yeah, he's been out for just a little too long. But the UFC notoriously sets up some of those fights that are in the favor for Kane, where they're like, what? You're fighting a debut heavyweight? Okay, weird. But they could do weird stuff like that. So that's not... With the UFC talk, with the champ...
Is Stipe the baddest man on the planet?
Of course. Has to be. No, baddest man isn't pound for pound, which isn't
No.
the number 1 ranking. Yes, I would say so.
Does he beat Kane?
But... Yeah, right now, in Kane's situation, yes, he's going to beat him just because I feel like Kane can have so many other injuries with his back or spine go on in the fight that it wouldn't matter who he was fighting. He just needs to step away.
So, UFC 220 in the books.
I was going to say,
it's
not in the books. Well, this I think can transfer over into our Twitterverse stuff is, how do you feel about the belt grabbing off of Dana White and giving it to his own corner and showing that he was upset with how the UFC has treated him? Did you catch that gif?
Yeah, 100%. I watched it on air. I thought it was...
weird. I remember actually saying like, whoa, that was weird. Why did he do that?
Yeah, and I thought it was a beautiful thing. You have your real life, and then you have this life that they try to make you feel like you have some sort of power in it. And you have some sort of family there. But I think a real person realizes, no, that if he would have lost that fight, there would have been no phone call. There would have been no, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. Don't worry. We're going to get you a good fight. No. But now he's the champ. He holds all the cards. He didn't get any workup on the fight. It was all about Francis.
Which... Not only is he upset because of the lack of potential media that he gets and or hype promotion for, like they likely were showing, the UFC was showing that they wanted Francis to win more than Stipe, but Stipe is the more honest not even honest, but I feel like relatable fighter. Anytime he does his media stuff on Embedded, I like watching Stipe have fun with buying his little guns. Or I remember we were talking with the ladies of the house and being like, look at Stipe, he's about to go fight a fight and he has to go shovel the snow. And they're like, oh, that's really nice, I like that. Because his wife was like, well, someone's got to do it. Like, he's so much more relatable that I think he's the star. Even though Francis looks like the action figure, Stipe Miocic is the guy that's that's putting out the fire on your house. He's the guy next door that's like, yeah, he mows his lawn every summer.
They need to get some gifts of him and all his
firefighting fighter, all sexy calendar type.
Yeah, they need to Stipe up a calendar. He's a cutie.
How do you feel about the Tommy Toehold Stone Cold Stipe moniker that he gave him? I think it's one of the best fitting myself.
Yeah.
Stone Cold Stipe.
He is kind of like that. He's really funny. He's all American guy.
Right?
He seems like a dude's dude. But he's charming in an old boy kind of way.
Agreed.
Yeah. I like Stipe. And then I've heard this chatter, which makes a lot of sense as well. If you think of a WME style of what they did with this, is you can't have Batman without the Joker. So you have to build up a villain for Stipe for people to actually care about him. And when we talk about this stuff, we're obviously not talking about hardcore fans. It's just the people that tune in for maybe pay-per-views only.
Would you say les casuals?
I know. Yeah, I guess that would be a good thing to talk about. The press conference.
Tony, Khabib, and Conor all together. Got to put that Conor name in there for the, we can write it on the on the description. Always seems to bring in views. So, Conor McGregor.
Yeah, that is so true.
Did you say his name in a mirror 3 times and rub a lucky clover and he...
But Ariel Helwani, why wouldn't Dana say he was stripped?
I love the Ariel Helwani question. It sets off so much in that fight because it does play with people's... Not even credentials, what am I trying to say? Leverage. Tony and or Khabib have more leverage when they can say they're the undisputed champion. With Conor holding that, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, in some sort of legal recourse that belt brings.
And am I stoned, or did we watch Tony fight for the interim belt already?
Correct. And then they're saying Khabib won it against who? Michael Johnson? No, not. Who did he fight last? Edson, who didn't have the belt or ever fought for it. So it doesn't make sense to me. Khabib doesn't have any which way. To me, it would be Tony, who then turned into the undisputed champ. And then they never made it for a belt with Edson. So Khabib does not have any belt.
No, he's just a contender for the belt.
Yep.
If the interim becomes real because they strip Conor. But I think this is a real thing. And this is a fuck you to Tony because he's such a weirdo. This is the UFC isn't stripping Conor because if they strip Conor and make Tony the champion, he gets pay-per-view buys. And as an interim, I'm sure there's a different deal. That is what I think.
I could see that. That all makes sense to me.
It's all an F you to Tony. They keep, as long as they can have Conor wearing a belt, then he's part of the organization. And Tony, they think he's a weirdo, which I think if they actually played with the fact that he's a weirdo and made it the focus of things, even his name El Cucuy is perfect for him because for the nightmare of what everybody else, in the Spanish world, but for white people, they think like cuckoo. They don't know, so it's like I'm El Cuckoo. I'm El Cucuy. And so I think he should kind of play with it, be a nerd. I don't know. My thoughts.
So
Tony's getting effed. I think by every way.
I think the entire 155 division is getting effed.
And he's my real champion. Tony Ferguson's my real champion.
I agree. He's the only person that's fought for a belt in that division in over a year. So, I don't trust that. The UFC in what they're doing, and this goes perfectly back onto the point that we were going to say earlier, that I was going to say about Cormier, John Bones Jones. The Golden Snitch himself, UFC, and multiple other people have come out on JBJ's behalf when it hasn't happened before. And to me, what personally is happening there is that they're trying to bring John Jones back into the fold to have leverage against Conor, because he holds so many chips right now. Because he's the person that, regardless of opponent, is going to have a million pay-per-view guys. Doesn't matter. It could be Mickey Gall. It could be anybody. He's going to bring... He has that level of fandom and superstar to his name. So, there's no one who refutes that. Even with Stipe, with all this stuff that's happening, I think it's more proof that Conor holds more chips than most people. By far.
He has so much power. It's easy that he has power.
Right. So that's where I really hate the UFC.
Have you ever seen Dana squirm like that before?
A few times, and it's usually big stuff, and there's something going on with it. Do you think they don't want Conor to be upset?
No, I think they're setting it all up so they can have Conor come in and make this big show with whoever wins and get in the ring and show his ass and run around like a maniac, and there's a whole bunch of people there to break it up, so they have all this footage so that they can use that footage to sell this fight. I think what Dana's learned what boxing does well and to add it, and what wrestling. And the thing that they're missing is the clips, the little 5-second, 2-second clips, screaming clips, pictures to get out the energy to sell an MMA fight for Conor. So the way they can make Tony or Khabib a big deal is by this fight being a big deal, Conor being there. It's going to be in New York. It's going to be a whole to-do, which he loves fighting and being in New York, but not fighting in New York because he always ends up being on the New York cards.
Have you seen supposed leaked footage and or dates that it's supposed to be in New York? Could be total Twitter BS. But I do feel like I've been seeing people posting that Khabib officially, Tony Ferguson, April 7th in New York.
Oh, that's definitely happening. I mean Conor. I think he fights before the end of the year, though, for sure.
I do think before 2018 is over, Conor is going to fight. But how many times? At most twice.
And everybody says, what's the reason he comes back? And I still say, remember way back when Conor McGregor said, I will own part of this organization one day. Like, I think that's what will be the buy-in. He'll say, don't even worry about paying me. I want shares of the company. I want a percentage share of the UFC. And I will help it. And Dana, frankly, he's not a young man. He needs a new hype man. What a perfect thing for Conor to roll into that eventually is the new Dana role.
Oh, do you think he can keep his ego in check?
Yeah, if he gets it. But I mean, look at who's a bigger hype man to Artem. Look at Artem Lobov. Artem Lobov should never be where he's at. It's because Conor's his hype man.
Yeah, and that Mickey Ward or Charlie Ward also got in the UFC and lost like 3 times in a row just because of the Conor credentials. Ooh, Conor credentials.
The CC.
Yep.
It's like diamond.
So.
Anyways, Conor.
Yeah, JBJ Conor DC. So, to Bellator, we ended up having a Bellator fight card this weekend. We had Aaron Pico coming through with a nasty body shot over a nobody who had no body at all. Pico was given that win completely, but he's coming along as a one young 45er. He'll eventually make it to the UFC. He has that type of talent, and free agency is going to be interesting for that young man. Did you watch that guy at all, or the highlights? These were gifts. I was watching the UFC and watched these all on Twitter.
No,
as they
I looked
were
up some
coming
of the
about.
results of the Bellator card, and then I watched 3 of the fights.
So Sonnen versus Rampage.
Watched
Sonnen.
it.
Boo, I didn't even watch it because I was like, oh, okay. Why would I want to see that? The fact that Sonnen, big underdog there, good for him, but either fighter needs to get on out of here. They are out of here. They're in Bellator, so this is right where they should be. But it's disgusting that was the main event, and that's why I'm leaving this to the end, because this deserved to be the main event. Rory versus
Silva.
Lima. Beautiful fight. Lima tore Rory's shin apart. Did you see those photos of that leg? Yeah.
I watched that fight.
Went to the hospital. Rory himself has already been on interviews and talked about how
he looks like
this is the worst he's felt. He's talked about this is the worst he's ever felt. This is by far the worst injury compared to his nose. That iconic Rory nose broken the Red King where he was christened the Red King. That hurt less than his leg, which happened in the beginning of the first round. A few of these outside shin kicks are a staple. Almost every fighter is throwing these now.
It's becoming a whole, I would say, like a
tactical
movement.
advantage.
Take out that leg.
You can't stand on it. You can't stand on it. Great game plan by Lima. Lima also could be in the UFC.
To me, I was surprised that Rory won that fight.
Agreed. That
I
was a close
Rory,
fight. That was
but
a close
I was
fight.
surprised he won that fight.
There was more control and takedowns for Rory, but the damage incurred in that fight, by far, Rory felt much, much more. On Bellator, as of all, just don't ever do another Saturday card. Just, if you do it, put it on in the morning. Don't put it at the exact same competing times, because I will watch Bellator, but not if my cherished little beautiful UFC that's been turning into a disgusting monster whore.
Agree.
But it's a whore I still have to watch. So, anything else with the Twitterverse that's gone on? Any other stuff?
The Amanda Nunes Cyborg stuff, which I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing that they're effing up both these divisions. I know it's the fight everyone wants to see, but frankly, as a purist, and I'm not a purist, but my personal opinion is I'd rather see Cyborg fight Megan Anderson. I don't think the UFC has anything to gain by making either women seem less dangerous. And a loss by either side makes either woman seem less dangerous. Why do that to either one of your champions? It doesn't make any sense to me. So, and I'm tired of victimization. I'm tired of it. Cyborg, the UFC is getting you fights. You're fighting. You're doing it, girl. You're the champion of the UFC. Give them a freaking break already. Give them a break everywhere. Talking garbage. I don't know if her manager or whoever her gig, whatever her gig is, I don't know if they're giving her the best advice.
Notoriously, she's had pretty rough managerial advice, but this type of allegations, if it's even allegations, these type of rumors of her being difficult to work with aren't brand new, which if everybody is an asshole and everywhere you go, more than likely you're the asshole. Like if everybody is always the asshole and you're always got something to complain about, eventually it's like, no organization is able to make you happy. Weird.
Maybe it's you, bitch.
Unfortunately. So I think there needs to be a little bit give on both sides, a bit more. And
what about, did you watch Rose on JRE?
No, I did not. Like I said, I've kind of taken a break off of, and I've been filling my time.
Pat Barry and Rose were on JRE.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How are his piles and polyps doing? Was he talking about his butthole this time?
No. I would say the first half of it, I'm like, why the fuck is he there? Like, I was starting to get aggravated. Like, what kind of weird, why is he... It would be a better conversation with just Joe and Rose. Why are you there? So what? You're at work right now. You're all the other coaches. Like when Stipe was there, he didn't have a person in the room with him. Or when Dominic Cruz is there, he didn't have someone in the room. I understand when TJ... Well, I guess it's her coach too, but whatever. By the end of the interview, I was glad they were both there. And it was a really interesting interview. Rose is the real deal. Like, she's the real deal person that is one of those people you're around that calms you down. Like she just
grounded.
And apparently she has a really sixth sense of sensing if shit's gonna go awry. And Pat Barry trusts it, like, all get out. So she's like, let's get out of here. They pick up their shit and go. It doesn't matter if it's out of a hotel. It doesn't matter. Like, they were supposed to stay in New York and do a whole press conference tour after the UFC, but she just got a weird feeling. So they were like, let's go. Wrap it up. Let's go. Out of New York after the original fight. Who do you have, JJ Rose?
In the rematch, that is a tough one. And that card in general is getting pretty stacked. There's a few
guess
other
what's
bouts
coming
on
out
there.
now? Guess what's coming out? JJ had a shit hard weight
cut. Good call.
I've been saying that for the last 2 fights.
It wasn't me, it was my weight cut. But she, though, JJ has moved on already. It's like, oh, the loss, whatever. I ran in the Olympic torch. I got to keep it. Like, she isn't missing a step. She's just still doing her professional thing, which I love.
Still the champion.
Yep, doesn't give a fuck.
The boogie woman.
That means nothing. So...
She hasn't watched the fight, though. Do you think that's...
I think that is very suspicious, and that is very dumb. You need to watch that fight.
I totally agree.
You need to watch that fight because Rose is going to do a lot of the same things, and you just thinking, like I was saying before, I'm not going to evolve. I'm going to keep the best.
Lesbo and the Bean said, which I think was a really telling thing, which they talked about for a little while. Guess what was one of the best changes to Rose's fight camp for that fight?
Valentina
Shevchenko. She trained with Valentina for 3 of Valentina's fights building up to her own. So she had 3 fight camps that she was training with Valentina. And she said, Pat Barry was saying, that woman is tough.
Okay.
Like, if Rose is tired, she's like, okay, you come in.
To Pat Barry? Yeah, she's a fucking beast.
But they said a lot of the way she approaches life and her fight style is a lot of the things that Rose, like even nature, and has taken on of her for herself.
You always see Valentina out in the fucking woods, usually with guns, which is more badass.
Well, they went to a dance club after one of Valentina's wins, and there was like a gunfight in the club. Like somebody pulled a gun in the club, and Rose was like, "We gotta go," and they were on their way out the door, and a guy they passed, like behind them, pulled a gun out and started shooting people in the club. As they were passing.
And Valentina was just dancing, just her doing her hot dance.
No, they got all their people together. They were on their way out together. I was like, Valentina had like a 9 strapped to her leg. And she's like, that, rolling, doing rolls as she's shooting.
I'm prepared for this kind of shit, suckers.
She's behind corners.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Go.
Yo, that's dope.
Yeah, so anyways, it was a good interview. I think everyone should check it out, especially if you're a Rose fan.
I'm going to have to go back and listen to that. There's a few other people I've seen that I need to go back and listen to, but there is time. If you guys ever decide to go back, our archives are on YouTube, and or you can find us wherever.
They also tell this fun story of how Joanna really fucked with their head. Yep. Like, she fucked with their head so bad, she walked past Rose. After their last weigh-in, their last everything, they walked past each other, and like before the fight, and Joanna said, "Do you believe him? Did you buy the ticket?" And walked away. And so
that's genius.
She was like, what the fuck does that mean? So she came back, and it was the night before the fight. So she came back to the hotel room and was like, I just saw Joanna in the hall, and I was like, hey, what's up? And, because Rose feels like that stuff's for the stage. She's like, whatever. She's like, hey, what's up? And Joanna was like, did you believe him to buy the ticket? She tells him, did you believe him? Did you buy the ticket? Pat Barry's like, oh, shit. I'm going to be up all night thinking about this. He's like, she got to me. She got to me. So they were like, Joanna is the best at what she does. She is full of head games. I just thought it was so funny. Anyway.
That's genius.
Yeah.
Absolutely genius.
So, yeah, follow us everywhere. LesboandTheBean.com and at LesboandTheBean on Twitter.
Lesbo and the Bean.